Hey, pre-calc people. So last week we started talking about limits, and we know how to find limits using a graph now. And so now what we're going to do is talk a bit about limit laws. If we know the limits of different functions as they approach a certain x value, we're going to talk about what happens if we were to add, subtract, multiply those functions, and things like that. And it is fairly intuitive, so hopefully we pick up on this pretty quickly. But anyway, here we go. First of all, here are the limit laws all written out. We're going to go over each of them, and then we'll do a couple of examples. So first of all, we need to know the limits of the two functions that we're talking about. So if I know the limit of f of x is m, some number, and the limit of g of x is some number n, then all of these things hold true. So first of all, the limit at each of these has to exist. So then, if I were to add the two functions together, and I take the limit, it would just be their limits added together. Likewise, if I'm subtracting the functions and I want the limit, it's just their limits subtracted. If I'm multiplying the functions, f of x times g of x, the limit is the limits multiplied. If I'm multiplying by a constant, like if I have any constant number, so 3, 5, 7, -7, any constant, multiplied by the function f of x, it would be that constant times the limit of f of x. If I'm dividing them, so I'm doing f of x divided by g of x, my limit would be m divided by n, as long as n is not 0, because we don't want to end up dividing by 0. So that's the only weird case where something different happens if n is equal to 0 and you're dividing. If I take the function, raise it to a power, and in this case, n would be some positive integer, or actually any integer. But anyway, then it would be m to the nth power. I guess if it was a negative integer, then you wouldn't be able to have m be 0, but anyway. And then, or if we took the nth root of the function, then it would be the nth root of m. So those are kind of a big overview of the limit laws. If you need to write those down, take a picture, anything like that, you can. Or if you just look up limit laws on Google, do an image search, it'll pop right up with all of these. Anyway, so these are our limit laws. Now let's do a couple of these types of problems. Okay. So we're going to say the limit as x goes to 3 of f of x is 7, and the limit as x goes to 3 of g of x is -2. And we'll throw a third function that we'll use in there too. The limit as x goes to 3 of h of x is 5. Okay, so when we do our examples, these are the three functions with their limits that we're going to be working with. So for the first one, let's do something simple. Limit as x goes to 3 of f of x plus g of x. Okay, so this is the case where we just take the limits of f of x and g of x and add them together. So the limit of f of x was 7, the limit of g of x was -2, so plus -2, and we get 5. Okay, so there's an example using the addition limit law. All right, let's do another. This time we'll do the limit as x goes to 3 of f of x divided by h of x. All right, so this is the case where we take their limits and we divide them. So in this case, the limit of f of x was 7, the limit of h of x was 5, so 7 over 5. And remember, this was the case where the bottom limit could not be 0, but we're good to go because the limit of h was 5. All right, let's do one with an exponent. Let's do the limit as x goes to 3 of h of x cubed. All right, so then we just take the limit of h of x, which was 5, and we put it to the third power, and we get 125. All right, last one we'll do for this is we'll do a root. Or actually, we'll do 2 more. We'll do a root, and then we'll do one with all 3 of them. Okay, so let's do the limit as x approaches 3 of the cube root of f of x. All right. So in this case, we just take f of x, which the limit of f of x was 7. So we take the cube root of 7. And you can either leave it like that, or if you're asked for a decimal, you can put it in your calculator and get around a decimal. Okay, last one. We're going to do the limit as x approaches 3 of f of x minus g of x times h of x. So we're putting a couple of these limit laws together here, and it works the way that you would think it would. We have our limit for f of x was 7 minus our limit for g of x was -2, and our limit for h of x was 5. Okay, so that gives us -10, since -2 times 5 is -10, but since it's already subtracted, we get 7 plus 10, which is 17 for our final limit there. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions, feel free to come to office hours, comment below, or send me an email. Have a wonderful day.